Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're going to be a craftier person after watching this video. Unfortunate screensaver. About 15 years or so ago, yours truly was working as a theatre technician, stage not operating, at an arts centre which hired out upon occasion for corporate affairs of various sorts. The event was an insurance company holding a risk management conference, basically to shout at their sales slime about not misselling financial products, or at least how to not get caught. Your standard corporate doze fest, thinks I, but I had exams and figured taking the gig would be a chance to revise. All is pretty much going to plan, minus the usual idiots who don't actually speak into the mic and the mumblers, but that is fairly normal for these things. Then Mr. Big Knob arrives. He thinks himself very senior, second under assistant to one of the assistants to the undersecretary for paperclip distribution, or something like that. Very full of himself and very, very alpha. The conversation, in earshot of my boss and grandboss. Son, I want you to put my laptop up on the big screen and then don't touch it. I don't want you messing with the picture while I'm talking because I know you people like to mess around with senior people's presentations. Me thinking, what the hell, but be professional? Fair enough. Pictures, sound and light, then leave it alone until you finish? Doesn't bother me. That's right, I don't want you touching anything. Okay, fine. Thinking, you utter prat. But easiest projection shift ever. Well, at the due time, Mr. Big Knob makes his way up until stage, and I do my thing. House lights go down, lectern lights and the mic comes up, tab out and laptop to projector. We're off to a very tedious couple of hours of death by PowerPoint, thinks I. Turns out the guy is using Word, not PowerPoint, and this matters because this guy puts up a page of basically unreadable text. Slides should not have more than about 5 lines, and proceeds to harangue the audience while walking up and down the front of the stage, ignoring the laptop. Mostly inaudibly because he'd not let me fit him with a lav, and in the dark because he told us he was going to use the podium and I was not to touch the controls. Well, after 15 minutes or so, the laptop does what they do when left alone, and the screensaver kicks in. Gay BDSM porn, some of it featuring Big Knob as the bottom, 30 foot wide and 15 feet high, appears behind him on the screen, and he had plenty of slides. I'm watching from the control room, maliciously sitting on my hands. I got no comeback at all from my management, but the look of horror on his face when he turned around was priceless, and I suspect the risk management lesson that was imparted was not quite the one he expected. The look on the CEO's face was interesting as well. The CEO actually came up afterwards and says, "He told you not to touch anything, didn't he?" I said, "Yes." CEO muttered, "Figures." Why on earth would you have a slideshow of that as your screensaver? Oh man, I wonder what happened after though. Tell me to find another job after asking for a raise? Will do. I started working for a small business when I was 20. Fast forward 5 years and I'm practically running the place with just the general manager and the assistant manager above me. The general manager leaves, so the assistant manager takes over naturally. I waited 5 weeks for the owner to promote me to assistant manager. It never came. Yet my list of responsibilities grew and grew. We never hired anyone to take on my role, and we never hired anyone to replace another co-worker who had left a few months prior. We are so badly understaffed that it got to the point that if I didn't show up to work, the only person that could open the business was the owner himself. That was not standard, as he'd been semi-retired for 20 years. He only comes in to check on things and pay the bills, about 5 hours a week at his desk. I was currently making $12 an hour. 5 weeks after the general manager left, I told the boss I wanted $15 an hour. Not unreasonable considering the general manager was making $20 an hour and the assistant manager was making $18 an hour, both with full health insurance benefits. I was not receiving health insurance through the business at that time. Anyway, it took my boss 5 weeks to get back to me. He kept ducking me. If you're keeping track, it's now been 10 weeks since the general manager left and I still don't have a raise. When we finally have our sit down, he offers me $14 an hour, but promises to give me a raise to $15 in a year. I explained to him that $15 an hour was more than fair, considering I don't need to be on the health insurance plan. He said the business was doing badly, and that's all he could afford. For the record, the business was doing poorly compared to the previous year, but $75,000 or so had just cleared up on his payroll, so cry me an effing river. I told him Walmart is hiring cashiers for $13 an hour. Target for $14 an hour, and another local supermarket chain for $14 an hour. We're on the coast, where the living wage is 19 plus an hour, so don't crap your britches, Midwest and Southern peeps. I flat out said, why would I want to keep managing a business for $14 an hour when I can stock shelves at the grocery store for $14? He kept his cool for the most part, but was visibly upset. He said, "Look, we just don't pay that much here. If you want to make that much, then go work for those people." Malicious compliance it is. Alright, you got it. I gave him an extremely generous 60 days notice. I needed to save a little more, and I didn't want to leave my coworkers hanging. I also wanted to see if he'd budge. He didn't. During this time, I expected to train new employees. It never happened. He never hired anyone. Fast forward a few weeks after my departure, the boss himself has to work part-time to make up for my hours. He's now clocking in 20 hours a week after going 20 years without working a 9 to 5. My old co-workers tells me he's miserable. I feel kinda bad because at the end of the day, he was a nice enough person, but I'm not gonna let myself get taken advantage of. Anyway, they called me just a few days ago and wanted to know if I wanted to work this summer, our busy season. I explained that I have 5 years of experience in this field and left as an acting assistant manager, so if you want to hire me seasonally, you're gonna have to pay me $17.50 an hour. The manager told me they couldn't afford that much. I said, if you want to hire a high school kid for minimum wage during the busy season, then go for it. Have fun training them. If you want to hire someone with years of experience that is already trained, you'll have to pay me $17.50 an hour. He never got back to me. I'm currently making $18 an hour at another small business. Maybe you shouldn't tell a valuable employee to find another job when they ask for a reasonable raise. Their loss. All this was caused over a $3 pay rise. That's not unreasonable at all, and now they're going to have to bring new people in and train them, and they could leave after the summer or in a year's time, and that's just basically money wasted, when this person was clearly committed to their job after spending 5 years in the business. I just don't get it. Rude customer wants to buy meat from our meat department. So this story happened probably a good 8 years ago, but it still sticks out in my mind and I have a good laugh about it. Our story starts with some background. I was working at a local supermarket in the meat department and had risen through the ranks to basically be in charge of running it. We were constantly short-staffed and it was always one person left to close the last 4 hours of the store being open. This meant dealing with the occasional customer and also the dishes in the back, machines being cleaned, stock being put in the walk-in and other prep stuff. One machine in particular, a motorised meat tenderizer, had to be cleaned and soaked overnight as the thing is literally 2 spiral death razor blades. It took some effort to clean and generally had to soak for at least half an hour before you'd be able to rinse it off and soak it again. So it was common to have this machine, all other things were working until close except this machine, disassembled about an hour before we closed. The rude customer is this lady who would always come in and insisted we tenderize her meat selection, and every time she would get the same answer of, "We're sorry, but that particular machine is closed earlier due to it being harder to clean," and she would scoff and leave. There was probably 2 weeks of her doing this, despite many attempts and offers of her direct line so she could call ahead and we would have her order ready. No dice. Well, this day I was closing down the department and it was getting close to closing time, about 40 minutes left, and in walks the entitled lady and she makes her way through the aisle and walks up to the meat counter. She again wants the same order. I try to explain again that it's closed. She does her normal scoff and walks off, and I think that's the end of it. Nope. She comes back with the store manager, she was friends with her, and again I explain why I couldn't make her order. The manager tells me to just go wash it and get her order. The lady looks pleased, and I say, "Okay, I'll get right on it," and into the back room I went. I started washing the blades on the rollers, and obviously it wasn't doing much since I hadn't been soaking long. I find a small enough brush that can get in between the blades and scrap out the gunk. The whole cleaning process takes me well over 30 minutes, but at the same time, I'm watching through our one-way glass mirror and seeing the look of joy turn into anger as the woman realised I wasn't kidding. She eventually got fed up and started to shop through the store, and when I got everything finished and set back up, she was in line at the front getting ready to pay and leave. I quickly turned the machine on and packaged her order up and almost ran up to her cart and said, "Here's your order." She said she didn't want it anymore, and I gladly told her that it was store policy that you have to pay for your order if it gets processed, even if you don't want it anymore, and dropped it in her cart and said, "Have a great day." The best part for me, and probably most malicious of all, was the fact that I still had all my other normal closing duties that would have been done, and because the store owner has the keys, she had to stay late and pay me overtime while I finished up. After that night, they didn't question me again. The rude lady never came back to my knowledge, and yes, she had to buy the meat. I watched her check out and try to fight it, but no dice for her. Hope you enjoyed the tale from my college job, and if you're out there lady, I hope your meat was wonderful. Edit. So the order was cube steak. Thank you Reddit for figuring out my very fake description. I also realised we could have done it by hand, and it was offered to her many times. She insisted it had to be put through the machine or they wouldn't come out right. It sounds to me like that woman wanted some sort of altercation. Like, if she had been showing up just before closing for 2 weeks to be told no every time and given alternative options like calling ahead so she could just pick up her order, it definitely sounds like she wanted to pull the manager card and just have a fight. What do you think? Okay, so that's all for r/MaliciousCompliance. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. My Twitter, Discord, and Patreon links are in the description, and any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching.